Hi, welcome to Southern Girl in the City. I'm Dominique Duarte. I'm a singer actor who currently lives in Brooklyn, New York. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. And this week has been exhausting. I worked 5 days at the school from 8 to 3, and then I worked 3:30 to 10 or 11 twice this week, and then last night I worked 5:30 to 1 in the morning. I worked uh, until midnight the night before. I'm just tired. I'm very tired. And I'm trying to figure out, oh my gosh, do I need to ask them to only give me 2 shifts a week for catering? Well, I know it's about to slow down. It's going to slow down in a few weeks. Pretty sure about that because that's been the case in all the other companies I've worked for. So I just need to bust it out this month. This medical bill that I had that came in the mail last year for 2,500 is now only $340 left. So I'm going to try to pay that off this month. That means that medical bill will be done. That's one less bill I got to worry about. Great. And then I'm going to start to put any additional money towards national debt relief. I'm currently putting 396 towards national debt relief. I've been doing that since July of 2023. And now I'm going to, ideally, I'd like to put 500 a month towards it. Looks like I only have 13,000 left to pay off at for national debt relief, and I actually wonder if I can do that in a year. It's not impossible with working two jobs. Um, I'm just kind of tired, and like I think that that's just gonna be what it is for the next few years because I'm trying to pay off this debt. Um, really gonna try to tighten up the budget a little tighter. It's more or less the food. Like, once again, food is something that I go to when I'm struggling with things. And even when I'm not struggling with things, food is really hard for me. And I feel like if I can look at it from a financial perspective, then maybe I will be able to curb it a bit. Um, I've been keeping a budget on an app called the Every Dollar app. Well, because I've been listening to Dave Ramsey, and so the Every Dollar app you can pay for it, but I got the free version. The free version is not hooked up to your bank account, which is fine because I can just look up my own bank account on my computer and then enter in every transaction that I make in each category. And I've been doing that since May. May was strong. June was not so strong. July was okay. And then August, September, October, November, December, I've been pretty consistent with logging it. Realizing that I'm bringing in more income since I lost my job than when I had my job, which is crazy. When I had the job at the preschool. Um, but it makes sense because I'm working 35-ish hours at the full time school, and then I'm working part time pretty consistently with Tribeca Rooftop now for 3 months. So the money has been coming in. I also sang at the church. I sang at a church as a soprano sub for a couple weeks. I put that into my savings. I finally have 1,000 in my savings, so that's great because that's the first baby step with Dave Ramsey. The second baby step is to just pay off your debt as quick as you can. Quick for me is not that quick because I have so much and I'm a single income, but I'm trying the best I can. Ideally, it'd be really cool if I could get out of national debt relief a little quicker. I'd like to try to finish it in a year and a half. I'm also paying back my graduate school that money that I owed them. Last year, I was teaching at a middle school in the Bronx. It was a charter school. And I don't know if I've definitely told the story, but I don't know if I was ever really specific about what happened. But basically, I got a job as a sixth grade math teacher. As soon as I start, they're actually asking me to teach music. Which is weird because I'm like, you hired me as a sixth grade math teacher. But they ended up asking me to teach if I would be interested in teaching music because apparently the music teacher was going to be leaving. And this was in February. So I was hired in February of last year to teach middle school. I'd never done middle school before. I really don't have a ton of middle school experience. I did work at a Montessori school where I taught pre-K through 8th grade. But other than that, and that Montessori school was different because I only had like 6 girls in my class from middle school, and I think they were 7th and 8th graders. Montessori combines the grades. So I think 3rd through maybe 4th through 6th might have been in the same class. And then 7th and 8th were in the same class, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. Yeah, I taught at that school like 10 years ago now. 2014, 2015 school year. But anyway, so last year in 2023, in the winter, I got hired right after they finished winter break. I started right after they finished winter break. Because in New York City, they don't have 2 weeks for Christmas break the way they do in other states. So in other states, you would get 2 weeks off for Christmas. They get 1 week off for Christmas. And then they get another week off in February. So I come back from the break and I start as their teacher. At this point, the kids had already lost their teacher, 2 of their teachers actually. So there was a co-teaching team, and one of the co-teachers was fired. The other co-teacher quit. And both of them, I think one of them, the one that quit, actually was their favorite teacher, and he had been there for years. After I get hired, I find out that the original principal at the beginning of that school year in September had been fired in October. And so the assistant principal became the principal. And then the assistant principal's friend, who was a science teacher, became the assistant principal at the school. It's like every school I go to, there's like some kind of crisis, something happening that's crazy. But this might have been one of the craziest. So I find that out after I'm hired, of course. In the first 2 weeks, they give me the schedule. The schedule was a way for me to wean into teaching the kids, which I thought was a pro and a con to that, because the pro was that, well, at least I'm not being thrust into it, which was what I thought was a good thing. I wasn't being thrust into it. However, because I was already coming in late in the year, I really needed to build relationship with the kids. And so there was a dean who was their teacher at the time. He was my co-teacher, but really he wasn't a teacher. And he was winging the lessons. He wasn't planning the lessons. So when I asked him, like, where are you? He couldn't really tell me. It was a lot. And so during those 2 weeks, my first 2 weeks, I did tell them I wanted to spend time with my homeroom. Like, I wanted my homeroom class to get to know me because they were my first period, but they were also my homeroom, and I wanted to get to know them. So during homeroom period, I was with them from the beginning. And that's why by the time I left 5 weeks later, that class I knew the best. And the other 3 classes didn't know me very well because for those first 2 weeks, I was observing other teachers. I was observing 7th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers, 6th grade teachers. I was observing other classrooms. And then I also was backwards planning all of the math lessons up until the end of the school year. That was my assignment for those 2 weeks. So I didn't really get to know the other classes as well. And this ended up being an issue because by week 3, week 4, those kids don't know me as well, and so I'm having more behavioral issues with them. Because I had behavioral issues with my first period homeroom class, but it was starting to become a little bit better because we were starting to get to know each other. I'm not gonna lie, these kids were from the Bronx, and they were a difficult group of children. Like, they were. But behavior from the students is never a reason why I want to leave education. Because sometimes the most difficult students are honestly the kids that I connect with. I do really like kids and I do connect with them well. I mean, there was this one kid that he didn't turn in his work at all, for one other teacher, and I got him to do his work. And he went from having like an F to having a C in the class because he turned in his work. It's just like motivating them to do the right thing. And I think sometimes the kid gets a label as being bad, and then it just makes them act that way too, because they are expected, that behavior is expected from them. um I was starting to feel like I was starting to get to know the kids um in my homeroom. And then week 3 and 4, I'm still trying to also learn how to teach sixth grade math, because I had been a third grade math teacher the previous year. I taught third grade and a little bit of fifth. Um, and third grade was where I was more comfortable. I did have to do a demo lesson for my to get the job. Excuse me. I did a sixth grade math lesson and I did it well, but I had days to work on it. So then they see me teach another sixth grade math lesson in real time, and she's like, "It's not as strong as your demo," and I'm like, "Of course it's not as strong as my demo, because I had days to prep that." And I'm also trying to get used to teaching sixth grade, because math now is being taught very differently than what I learned, and so I'm still trying to figure it out. Also, the lessons I believed were pre-planned. A lot of the charter schools have their own lesson plans. And you would think, "Oh, well, that's easier." Not really, because I didn't write it. So it's like I'm trying to internalize something that I didn't do. So it makes it harder for me to teach it. When I was a music teacher, I created my own lessons and I feel like the execution was a bit better. I never really felt like I got strong at executing my lessons. I'm just going to be honest. I struggle with that. That probably was the hardest part of teaching to me, was executing. I think sometimes I would do a good lesson plan. Like, I would do the intellectual protocol, preparation protocol. That's what you have to do when the lesson's pre-done, but you have to get the thinking on the students. And that part always frustrated me, because I'm like, how am I going to put the thinking on the kid when they don't know the material? So it's just like really a weird way of teaching now. And and then too, you also are working with kids from low income. So a lot of the times they are behind. They don't know fourth grade work, fifth grade work. So to get them to do the thinking for sixth grade work when they don't have the skills, it just, I don't know. And you're like, "Well, how did you end up teaching math?" Well, I got hired at Achievement First in the 2020-2021 school year to be a teacher's in residence. Um, to teach music, I would have to go back to school to get a master's degree in music education. I mean, I've applied for private schools, I've applied for charter schools to be a music teacher. I actually just interviewed this month to be a music teacher, and I didn't get the job. So I don't really know. I don't seem to be getting music teacher positions. I've gotten part time positions, like as a teacher's assistant. I'm sorry, not assistant. A teaching artist. I've been a teaching artist after school. But here's the thing about music that's really challenging for me as well. I'm a really strong singer, but I don't feel as comfortable teaching vocal lessons, because I feel like I need to continue training with teaching voice, and I don't feel like I've ever gotten enough training to feel comfortable teaching voice lessons. Because just because I can sing doesn't mean that I can execute teaching a lesson about voice, because it's a very complicated thing, teaching voice. And I don't think people realize that, who are not singers or who are not studying classical. I could teach a child how to sing with breath, like breath breathing. And then maybe help them with confidence, which is what I did when I had my own business. If I work with children, I didn't try to get them to sing opera. I wasn't getting them to sing arias. I was trying to get them to sing child appropriate things because that's what they should be singing. But also, with that age, it's more about breathing and it's more about confidence and building their reading of the music. But being a voice teacher is really complicated. Like my voice teacher, who I haven't seen in forever, but she goes to training all the time. It's something that you really have to learn. Because I had one of my relatives was like, "Well, I just think that's a cop out. You should, you're a good singer. You could teach voice." But I'm like, it's not that simple. I know what it takes to be a voice teacher, and I don't have the skills. I'm just gonna be honest. And I still never really got the bel canto technique completely. I know the general gist of what's supposed to happen. I understand that more than I used to. But I don't think I ever mastered the bel canto technique. So I don't want to teach it to people when I don't have it completely solid. I haven't been in vocal lessons consistently, so that's a no. I technically never studied choral conducting, so me leading a choir is also challenging because I don't really have choral leadership experience. And then instrumental, completely a no. Because a lot of the times they're looking for band directors. I can't be a band director. So music teaching is not as easy to get into as people think it is. Um, yeah. So there's that. Teacher in residence, the reason why I was interested in that position was because I wanted to learn how to have good classroom management. I knew that when I work with children, my biggest Achilles heel is my classroom management skills, lack thereof. So I was hoping as a teacher in residence, I was going to learn how to be an effective teacher. But what ended up happening is the pandemic happened. So I ended up having a co-teacher, and I ended up being a co-teacher instead of a teacher in residence. I mean, I was a teacher in residence, but I was really a co-teacher. So once again, I was thrown into it, and I'm ended up teaching subjects. And she taught ELA mostly, and I taught math and science. But she taught the ELA because I never felt comfortable teaching ELA. And English was always my best subject in school. I scored the highest on my TCAP, on my ACT in English. But and I'm a great writer. However, teaching ELA is so complicated because you once again have to put the thinking on the student before they know the material. So I don't understand how that's possible. I still don't get it. Like I never understood how to get the kid to put the thinking on them without them having the skill. Because when I was a student, I learned the skill and then they put the thinking on me. It wasn't, while I'm teaching you the skill, I'm going to put the thinking on you. Like, it's confusing to me. Still, I just never understood it. And so it wasn't just that teaching was hard because of the politics of it. It was also, I just didn't understand how to effectively execute a lesson. I don't think I ever felt comfortable executing my lessons. Even after a good, well, solid plan, the execution of it was just not great. And that was frustrating for me because I should have, you think, oh, you just view it as a performance. But one of the things I was told is you need to practice, which sometimes I did, but sometimes the actual planning of it, of how I'm going to execute a pre-planned lesson, the structure of putting the thinking on the child took me so long that I didn't have time to practice it. In order for me to just get it on the paper of what I was going to do took me so long. And you're talking about every single day you're teaching a new lesson. It takes a lot of work to be a teacher. And I think what happens is when you've done it longer, you can use the same materials and things. However, I never got to the point where I had done it very long. So third grade, I still probably feel the most comfortable with teaching math because it's multiplication. It's pretty simple. But ELA, I just was like, this is not working. And then I also had to do guided reading. In guided reading, you had small groups. You had multiple small groups. They were on different reading levels. You had to choose books for them to read. And then you had to meet individually with each person in your group. And you would have to ask them questions that would help them become stronger with reading comprehension. This was a lot because it's like each kid had to have their own tailored little mini lesson in a sense. And I think I had about 10 or 11. You have about half the class is in your groups. And I think I had 2 to 3 different groups depending on the school. And yeah, it was a lot. So last year, when I get to week 3 and 4, my assistant principal says, she's thinking that they want to take me out of 6th grade math because they didn't think my classroom management was strong enough. However, I'd only been in the class for 3 weeks, and technically I really wasn't with them for 3 weeks because I was observing other teachers. So I wasn't really building relationship with the other 3 classes. My class and I had more of a relationship. The other 3 classes, no. So I was really struggling with those classes. Some of them more than others. Like second period was a really good class. Second period actually was a class that I did my demo lesson in. But my fourth, I think I had lunch during third period, but like 5th period was challenging, if I'm not mistaken. And 4th period was also challenging. Just not having a relationship. And what I don't understand is administrators know that, or they should, that relationship is very important. And if you don't have the relationship, it's really hard for the kids to listen to you. So I can't help that I didn't have the relationship. I can't help that I was the 3rd teacher they had that year. And yeah. So she says to me that here's the thing. They had wanted me to teach music they asked me on the first day. And I initially said yes, but I changed my mind because I had to re-enroll in graduate school because I was trying to finish my degree. And because I was trying to finish it, I needed to teach math because that is what my certification was going to be in, is elementary 1 through 6. Elementary 1 through 6. Not 7th. That's coming up later. So she asked me to teach music, and originally I said yes, and then I changed my mind because I need to teach math. And I didn't want to teach math one period because initially I did say, oh, well, maybe I could try teaching math my first period and then teach music the rest. But I knew that teaching was so stressful for me that I didn't need that. I needed to teach 1 math lesson a day, and I needed to teach it 4 times so that I could become more effective as an educator. That was my thought process. However, she asked me to teach SETS. SETS is a special ed small group, which my certification that I'm trying to get is in general ed. It's not in SPED. It's in general education. New York State is very different. So in other states, you can get a K through 12 certification. In New York State, there are 3 separate certifications. They are not the same. You have early childhood, which is baby until 2nd grade. Completely different certification, completely different master's degree, completely different everything. Same thing with 1 through 6. Completely different certification, completely different master's program. They do not correlate. Then there's 7th through 12th grade, which also does not correlate to any of the other certifications. So when you decide to teach 7th through 12th, that's all you can teach. unless you want to get another master's degree to teach something else. So I'm being asked, once I changed my mind to be a music teacher, not be a music teacher, they say, okay. And then she says my classroom management's not where she thinks it should be. And it's like, well, I'm only 3 weeks in. And I'm also 3 weeks in with a group of 6th graders who lost their science teacher because she's now the assistant principal, who lost their math teacher twice. So she asked me to teach sets and to teach 7th grade math with another co-teacher who I liked, who I still keep in contact with. But I tell her, I was like, I don't think I'm allowed to do that because I think I'm supposed to teach 1 through 6th grade. And she tells me, Miss Duarte, and I quote, Ms. Duarte, you are making this too difficult. I went to your graduate school. Relay is not that strict. Just record the back of their heads. Because for graduate school, I had to record myself teaching. You can't record the students' faces, but you had to record yourself teaching with the students' backs and the back of their heads. And she was like, just record the back of their heads and say you're teaching 6th grade, even though you're teaching 7th. And I was like, okay. Because I felt like if I said anything else, it was going to be refuted. So I just was like, okay. And then I talked to my professor, and I also had we were reading a book at church, and I was talking to them about it as well. And I was like, not really sure what to do here. So I talked to my professor, and my professor is like, this is not just a relay problem. This is against state regulation. You cannot teach sets because you don't have a SPED certification. You also cannot teach 7th grade because you are in the process of getting 1 through 6. Now, I do believe I have heard that if you got 1 through 6 certification, if you've already gotten it, then maybe you can teach 7th grade. Maybe. But I was in the process, so I could not teach 7th grade. If someone were to find out that I was teaching 7th grade or teaching sets and they came to visit the school, I could never teach again, ever in life. Because I would not, you permanently lose your certification probably if they find out that you're teaching outside of it. So, I send a email to the principal because she doesn't know anything about this. And I send it to her, and she says, both of them are upset because I CC'd the superintendent. And I did that because the principal wasn't the most communicative. So I didn't really know to go to her per se, and I knew that they were best friends, and I just didn't know how to handle the situation. I'm gonna be honest. Could I have handled it better? Yeah. I probably should have just told her a second time, hey, I told my professor, she said that's not okay for me to do. But conflict resolution is a tough skill for me. I'm not used to conflict. I'm really not. And when it happens, I would say most of the time I'm pretty quiet. Or there have been times where I have just lost it, okay? So I was trying not to do either. And this time I was trying to address it. It's hard because I will start to speak up and try to address an issue. But a lot of the times, and I know this is a word that's probably overused now in 2024, but yes, a lot of the times I am gaslit. Every time I do try to bring up a concern in education. And this wasn't the first time. And it ain't gonna be the last time that I'll say, hey, I don't think this is okay. And then the response is dismissive or just like, no, don't worry about it. Or, yeah, I just am always mind boggled at how people are so okay with being dishonest. And I don't know, it could just be a New York thing. Like, people just know that they gotta do what they gotta do to get by. But I just am like, why would you want me to lie? Anyway, so I end up resigning. after they called me in their office about the fact that I sent the email. And she wanted me, the principal wanted me to tell my side of the story, but I didn't want to throw the assistant principal under the bus because I knew she had gotten a promotion, like another promotion in the network. And I just was like, let me just resign. I feel like, I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit, but I was just like, I need to resign. This is not it. So I resigned. Could I have kept the job? Probably. Would it have been a good work environment after what happened? Probably not. I do wish that I could handle things a little better. I don't feel like I'm going off the handle or anything anymore. Like I did in 2021 at one of my schools, I did snap. But like at this school, I really kept calm. Even towards the end, I just said, I'm gonna resign. And they were like now? And I'm like, yes. And she's just like, do you want to talk about it? And I'm like, no. And I mean, the tone that I'm currently using is the tone that I had. Oh, and I literally just went home. This was at like 10 a.m. I just was like, I'm done. The thing is like, I could have compromised my integrity to keep the job because I know I wouldn't be the first. But, and the thing is, that was the highest salary I'd ever had. It was $72,000 a year that I walked away from. And Lord knows my bank account needed it. Yeah. So that's what happened last year. And a lot of people keep telling me, well, Dominique, you only have 5 credits towards your master's degree. And I ended up owing $4,000 to that school. Now it's $3,500 because I've been paying on it, finally. I'm going to pay it off by January of next year because I'm paying $252 a month. I started doing that last month. So yeah. It wasn't, I won't say it wasn't easy. Actually, that probably was one of the easiest jobs that I left because I kind of just, at that point, was just, it's just not worth it. And that's kind of how I felt in the moment. I actually did not regret leaving that job at all. Because if anybody's going to ask me to be dishonest, I don't want to stay there. So, yeah. There's just a lot of shady stuff that happens in education. And I don't really know what it is. If it is it a New York thing? Because in Tennessee, the very first school that I worked at, not St. George's, St. George's was fine, but Florida, Kansas, the very first full-time position I had as a teacher was a mess. And I'm like, I think that was my first attempt, was to be a music teacher at a inner city school in Memphis. My second attempt was teacher in residence, co-teacher at Achievement First. Made it through the entire school year during the pandemic, and then didn't pass my final observation. And I didn't know if they were going to be rehiring me, so I left at the end of the school year. I stayed I finished that entire year. Then went to Elm. That was just a lot happening at Elm. I don't even know how to explain it. And I also felt like I didn't handle that as professionally as I wish I could have. And then went to the public school in PS202. By that point, I was so burnt out. I was over it. That one I do wish I had stayed. Even though it was a chaotic environment too. But I wish I had stayed because I wouldn't have owed so much money. I wouldn't have ended up owing $10,000 if I had just finished at that school. Like that one I felt like I should have stayed and just finished it out because I would have finished my degree. It would have been fine. And then this last time, democracy prep, 6th grade math, I didn't finish. So it's like I have attempted to be a full-time educator 5 times in my adult life. And yeah, it's the emotional roller coaster. And I'm like, I keep going back to education because I don't know what else to do. Because I can perform on a stage and I still perform, but I don't get paid a ton of money to perform. It's not consistent. And then I have customer service, which honestly, I don't mind customer service. I actually, surprisingly, kind of like it, especially catering, but it's not enough money. And then I have education, which that's something now at this point I have a lot of experience working with kids. And now when I apply for things, even the last job I did, when I applied, they wanted me to be a teacher. They hired me because they wanted me to be a teacher. And when I didn't fulfill that, that is probably why they fired me. Now that I'm thought about everything, I'm like, that's what it was. They wanted me to be a teacher. They hired me because they knew that I had almost a certification. They wanted me to be a teacher. Because when they promoted me to full time at the preschool, they were like, well, you said you wanted to be promoted. And I was like, I don't remember saying that in my interview with them. They wanted me to be a teacher. And they asked me to apply for the certification to be a early childhood. Because once again, if I was going to do that, I would have to go back to get another master's. Couldn't finish the master's I had. I would have had to get another master's. I cannot afford to do that. And I basically told them that I cannot afford it. And it's like anything that I want to do requires me to go back to school. So I'm just like, I don't really know. I'm trying to figure out next steps. It's just like, I think that I'm praying for what the Lord, I've been praying for that though. I prayed for years, Lord, what is your will for my life? I do believe I am called to be a performer, and I know that it is competitive. I know that it's hard, but I think had I not put so much energy in trying to have stability and putting so much energy in trying to be like my peers, then maybe I would have been more successful at singing and acting. But I think sometimes I kept getting distracted because I kept trying to have a regular job. And I think that sometimes there's definitely downsides to that. I spent so much of energy from 2020 all the way up into 2022, really 2019 until 2022. I didn't do a single audition. I didn't perform. I didn't do anything. Oh, I did one performance at the Shed with Fire Ensemble, but I didn't perform. And I was also the most unhappy I'd ever been. So it's just like, I don't really know. I think teaching is a calling. It really is. And I mean, now that I'm working at this public school, I see that there are teachers who really are good at what they do. And I'm getting to see them and observe them. And it's like, oh gosh, like I wish I had gotten to do that before I tried it myself. To see what a model teacher looks like. But I don't know. I do truly believe I'm called to perform. And I do believe that it's going to be in a timing that's just not as fast as I thought it was going to be. But I'm called to perform. Like and I think because I keep trying to go to other things, particularly education, something that's like I'm trying to fit a square into a circle. And I like being a TA. I think it's a good balance. I think that I'm really good at being a TA because I'm really good at following direction, which is part of the reason I'm good at acting, because I'm really good at following direction. Like, I'm not saying I'm a follower, but I don't really want to be a leader. Like, I don't like taking leadership. I never did. Even when I was in school. I don't mind maybe helping people with things, but I don't ever remember anybody ever telling me, Dominique, you're a natural leader. Never. I don't remember anybody saying, Dominique, you should think about leading, blah, blah, blah. Other than you should get into education and be a teacher. But I mean, leadership was never my strength, but that doesn't mean I'm a follower. It just means I'm really good at taking direction. And I pay attention to the details. And I try to make sure I understood what your direction was. If I didn't get it, I try to ask for clarification so that I do understand. But not everybody's meant to be a leader. And I know that's so weird to say because everybody's always talking about leadership. If you're not successful, if you're not a leader, and it's like, well, not everybody can lead. Some people do need to not lead, because part of the funny thing about working even in customer service is how many of my coworkers in the past have tried to be the leader when they're not the leader. It's just like, why is it like I've been around so many people who try to lead in situations where they're not the leader, and it's frustrating because it's like there's already a leader. And sometimes sometimes the leader may not be the most competent. Definitely have seen that in plenty of my jobs. But I've never been that person who's gonna boss around my coworkers. Like, even in a musical, I'm not doing that. And I don't want to do that. I'm like, I want to be told what to do and do it. And it's not that I'm going, because I was never the person who was going to do drugs because other people were doing it. I'm not drinking alcohol because other people were doing it. Because that's a follower. In a sense, I am fine with following my own path, but I just don't think I'm called to be a leader. I think that I'm called to be a performer. I'm called to be a light. I'm called to maybe help people and help them maybe find their confidence or help them become a better person. But that doesn't mean that I need to be a dictator or, So, yeah, I think sometimes with teaching, I've just been trying to fit myself into a square when I'm a circle. Or I'm sorry, I'm a square and I'm trying to fit myself into a circle. And it doesn't work. And I realize that because I'm so scared about money, I keep going into education because I don't know what to do. And it's not great because it does mean that I'm not really showing that I have faith in the Lord's plan. And the Lord opened up an opportunity for me to do an equity job, and I didn't take it this year. Because I'm trying to be like everyone else and have stability. And it's just like, I don't think I was made to have stability. I think I was made to be different. And that's not easy. It is not easy. But I don't know why we think life is supposed to be easy. Because I'm pretty sure most of the people in the Bible really did have a hard life. Like, they really did struggle. Even though they were called to amazing things, in order to get to that calling, they had to go through a lot of challenges and difficulties. So sometimes people think, well, you didn't hit your goal the way you planned, so you need to move to something else. And it's like, no. Because I have booked professional jobs pretty consistently over the years, and I had been trying to get an equity opportunity for 8 years, and I finally got it. I just turned it down. So it's like, I'm really good. I'm really talented, and I'm going to try my best within the next year to try to lean into that. Going to rehearsals with Fire Ensemble, also maybe starting to sing in the subway stations, building my audition book, maybe going to some auditions in person, and just being the best person that I can be, because that's all I can do. And stop comparing myself to other people, which is hard, because you're 35 and it's like, oh, everybody who's 35, it's like they're married, they got kids, they got a home, and it's just like, I don't have any of those things, and sometimes that's really challenging to think about. But I think I'm called for something big, and I just have to have faith that things are going to work out, and so far things have. Yeah. So I hope you have a lovely week. This has been my education story, testimony, I guess. I'm still going to be a teacher's assistant. I like being a teacher's assistant, but I don't think I'm called to be a teacher. I don't think that that was something I was supposed to do. I think I went into it because I was scared and I didn't know what else to do. And I was so worried about money. And I actually made my financial situation worse by becoming a teacher. Welcome to life. Well, have a lovely week. This has been Southern Girl in the City, and bye.